I thought I might start doing the odd tentpole thing on this channel. You know, churn some crap out fast to capitalize on the trending topics. But I'm a little bit late to this. I'm always a little bit too late. So it's a really good test run of doing this sort of thing. Also, this video might look good or it might look insane. I'm doing a bunch of color tests right now, so the setup is what it is. I'll talk through that stuff on the website next week. There you go. Plug for the website up top. Everyone loves that. Good. I always love to open with the admin-based intro. Fuck jokes. I think I'll start with my first impressions and then I'll loop around, whatever. There'll be a structure, hopefully. So the show opens, I think the very first thing that you see is a very shitty, fully digital landscape flyover. It looks like absolute arse, which sort of continues throughout. You know, it doesn't really feel like it's shot in an actual place. There's a lot of switching between soundstage, fully digital establishing shots, and some stuff that was shot in Iceland, I think. It was somewhere doubling as Alaska. So none of it really feels like it's actually in a place. So whatever. Second thing that you notice is that the color and the camera, it looks very digital, and it has this very trashy teal and orange color grade over everything. It is like flat and clean. The cinematography is often interesting. The endless night stuff is a great sort of visual opportunity or whatever, but just sort of in the technical delivery of it, it looks cheap. Sort of like, you know, like a premium stock footage aesthetic. And then we're treated to some animated animals running around, which look alright. I think fur has come a long way, especially recently. You know, there's the TED show out now as well, and like it looks good, and it looks like, you know, what was movie quality you can now achieve on a much lower budget. Now, it's probably not a good sign if your show is making me think, wow, it's amazing what you can do for cheap these days. And then the title screen hits, and we've got Billie Eilish, Bury a Friend, which, you know, that song was run into the ground like 4 years ago. It's a good song. It's sort of an embarrassing song to use as title card music, but whatever. Just overwhelmingly, the feeling of this, it feels like a streaming show. It feels like Netflix. It looks like Netflix. It feels like a COVID production. Overall, it has a slightly shitty feeling to it. So that's the first impressions. I think it does get better from there. Now, True Detective Season 1 is obviously very respected and influential. People like it, and people who make things like it. Now, I think it has a sort of straightforward narrative. There's not really any twists and surprises. There is maybe one anti-twist and surprise, but it's a pretty sort of straightforward plot. Mostly just wading through a grand conspiracy and getting nowhere while some personal drama happens, you know? There is a lot of setup and payoff stuff, but it's more for character. You know, you're not really trying to solve the mystery. Or I guess some people were, and they were really disappointed, but I think it's just this sort of, you know, trudge through dread and decay. So it's not really a great plot on paper, I don't think, but in execution, it really came together. I think really what carries it is the style, and especially the style of the writing. It's pulling in a lot more like literary styles. It's doing noir and Nietzsche and true crime, obviously, and Southern Gothic and cosmic horror. It's got quite a grand feeling to it with this, you know, wide-reaching plot and this long timeline in a way that is just a lot more like a book. And you're changing perspectives, and you've got unreliable narrators, but I think it really works in the TV format, and it really almost needs to be in the TV format. So much of what works about it, what carries you along on this story, is the audio-visual flow. But then actually visually, I think it is sort of flat. It is sort of early on the trend of doing this very like naturalistic, underlit lighting look that everyone hates now. So I suppose I've been unfair to Night Country, actually. It is upholding the tradition of looking kind of bad, but season 1 was shot on film, and it does work for this story, right? It makes sense to be muddy and underlit and desaturated. Even the audio mix is quite muddy. And also, you know, like the camera work, the acting is all very rehearsed and smooth and tight. And the final thing that I wrote down that brings the style of season 1 together is the sense of place. all of it really feels built around being in the place that it is. It's shot in an actual place, and you can tell, and it uses that place. But to me, it is incredibly flawed. I don't have a ton of respect for the creators involved. It is sort of stupid and leering. Probably the biggest thing holding it back is the rampant misogyny. And it is trying to be cool. I realize I have to be careful here because probably about a quarter of my audience has Rust Cole profile pictures. But you know, what it has to say, its philosophy, it's just like plagiarized Redditisms that don't, you know, it doesn't tell us anything. It does tell us stuff about the character, and I think that's cool. And I think the great thing is that Matthew McConaughey gets some literary monologue, and then Woody Harrelson tells him to shut the fuck up. It's sort of like the Shane Black buddy cop dynamic, but without proper jokes, which is awesome. So whatever, I don't want to spend forever talking about it, but it's sort of cool and nice to look at and stuff, but it is broadly stupid. However, I think it is trying for authenticity, trying to create true characters in a real place, and so it works. Now, back to Night Country. In contrast to Season 1, which didn't really have a good idea for a story, but was carried by the style. I think this movie has a good hook, which we'll get back to, but the execution often sucks. The dialogue is full of cliches and boring exposition, stock characters and stock moments, very sort of self-aware, Marvel style foreshadowing, you know? It's sort of trying to be more explicitly supernatural, and it is, it's tropey. You know, it's full of things that have been done before. It feels like The Terror and Wind River and Twin Peaks and Fortitude. It's just The Thing, which they flag up in the episode. It's just like stuff that you've seen before. It actually often reminded me of Twin Peaks Season 2 specifically, in that it is trying for style, and you can tell that it's trying to be Lynchian, but it's got a good pace. It moves through things quickly. I think just overall, the feeling is that it feels like normal TV. Now, a complaint about Season 1 is that it didn't go fully supernatural, right? It sort of hinted at things, it teased at things, but nothing was ever confirmed. There was a rational explanation for everything, you know. Now, I liked that. I think Season 1 in that area worked perfectly. The supernatural evil could be supernatural, but really it's just sort of, you know, representative of evil in the real world. It's Lynchian. So to me, Night Country overplays its hand. It goes too supernatural. Now, I'm sure they'll you know, dial things back. They'll come up with some explanations for things, but it feels like they've already gone too far for the explanations to feel like anything other than an arsepull. Just to me, I think the like central mystery, the inciting incident here, is not interesting because it's already too magical and too unexplained. It's just like, yeah, whatever, some bullshit happened. But I think it does have the big character drama to carry it instead. So it's sort of similar to Season 1 like that, but to me, it's not doing it very poetically. Quite plain, sometimes embarrassing dialogue, where Season 1 really hooked me with the dialogue. You know, once Matthew McConaughey starts rambling about a psychosphere, I'm like, alright, this rules, I'm in. It doesn't feel like there's that character interest here, though there is like a much bigger character drama. I think actually what it's doing is sort of big, broad horror characterizations. It feels like the characters are more fulfilling a role in the story than character, you know, which I think somewhat limits it. These characters being more archetypes than people, it does make it like you can see the rest of the plot coming, you know. The men killed the lady and the scientists were corrupt or whatever, and they found something in the ice that made them walk outside and die, you know. And I don't really care about her dead son. Did she have a dead son? And there was a botched job in the past that they're gonna get over or something. The mine is poisoning the water. You know, it's so broad. I don't care. It just doesn't do anything to make me care. I think the idea of those things I could be easily made to care, but I don't. Whatever. Now's a good time for me to pivot. I think the themes and ideas that it's exploring are worthwhile. And on that level, it is sort of smart. Missing and murdered Indigenous women, environmental damage, the corruption, climate change, cultural identity and capitalism and mental health, whatever, all that stuff. That's not a good way to end that sentence. All the themes here that the story is built around are worth exploring, and I think it's actually doing that in quite a smart way. I mean, so far, I've seen one episode, but you know, the setup for it, talking about issues, you can do a lot worse than this. I mean, it's not subtle. It is possible to do this sort of storytelling in a subtle way, but I think True Detective, none of it has been subtle, and the previous stuff was unsubtle in a sort of macho way, so, you know, that was sort of probably stupider than this. It's probably not worth mentioning, but I might as well do it. Issa Lopez tweeted and then hastily deleted a post having a go at the bros for review bombing this on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it got down to like 80% or something. It was really, there was a massive hate campaign against this thing. So, you know, that masterfully opened the floodgates to a bunch of mid-2010s culture war stuff, which is really dumb and stupid. Which, you know, this being on YouTube, is a good chance that, you know, someone's coming here because they're in the middle of going through all racist videos, finding out all the racist opinions to have about this show. So I think it's worth noting that you should fuck off. But obviously for me, you know, I think the idea of pushing this show because it's important or whatever is stupid. It's still limited in perspective, you know, it's still about cops and stuff. I just think it's a fine show. It's fine. It's a competent streaming show. It is talking about some things that are important and worthwhile to tell stories about, and it's got a somewhat interesting delivery. There you go. That's about the best I can do for it. Sorry. Now let's get back to the IP. So this does tie into True Detective in a couple of stupid, offhanded ways so far. I believe it originally wasn't at all intended to be True Detective. It was a different show, and then they were like, oh, let's add the word True Detective in front. And then added some stuff to the show, like the spiral tattoo and the beer, for no reason. So, on that level, trying to literally tie it into True Detective, I think that is really stupid. But, you know, what it has to say as a response to True Detective is probably not bad. You know, that's where it gets into, you know, doing the opposite. You know, where that was like a masculine, stupid show, this is a feminine, stupid show. Now, I think a problem with the True Detective brand is that it doesn't work. It doesn't work as an anthology. I like Season 1, I like Season 2. There you go, that's my contrarian opinion for the day. But you know, what is tying True Detective together? It's not format, it's not place, it's not character, it's not style. It's maybe the abstract approach to those things. I think just pitching it as an anthology in the first place was a good way to get that first season made. So that was smart. But it's not a good idea for an anthology. It isn't an idea for an anthology. Whatever, it's nothing. There isn't an idea here. This show doesn't tie into True Detective, really. It's just that they wanted to attach it to some IP. HBO used to offer that you would pay a premium and then you would get quality content, right? That was the deal. Now, a few mergers and acquisitions later, turns out AT&T and Discovery don't really care that much for quality over quantity. So now HBO is just a brand name that has a legacy association with making stuff that's good. And the shareholders have bought up all this IP that supposedly has value. So they need to churn out crap using that IP to try and trick themselves into believing that that was worthwhile. Or whatever, I don't know. I think I've got through all I had. Obviously, this is a massive swing to take off. You know, I only saw the one episode, so whatever, who gives a shit? I just did a video on the website talking about the color of Sailor Moon, The Matrix, and Twin Peaks, and before the month is out, I think I will have a video on some topical content and talking through my setup tests and color shit. But that's that for now. Subscribe to calebgammon.com. Thanks.